years as thinking that the Ashkenazi are in fact descendants of Shem. And we've discovered that the Ashkenazi are in fact the synagogue of Satan. They're the descendants of Japheth. They're Turkic Mongols from the Khazarian region that converted to Judaism in the 6th and 7th century. These are the things that we've discovered over the past few months. Those teachings came across in exposing the rotting stick of Israel and the synagogue of Satan that are in our archives. But then if I'm going to go forth and say, well, you know, those that say that they are Jews but are in fact not, but are the synagogue of Satan, and the Ashkenazi are in fact not Jews, they are sons of Gomer, Japheth, they're not even Shemites. Many people have come to me and said, well, who are the real Jews then? Where are the Jews and what's going on? I mean, we understand that we're Joseph's multicolored coat and we're exiled into the nations, but if Yahweh is gathering the whole house of Israel, all 12 tribes, and the stranger that wants to graft in and join, then where are the tribes and what's going on? So I think it's really important to address this subject because, as I said, 92% of the people that say that they are Jews today are in fact Ashkenazi, sons of Gomer, so thereby are the synagogue of Satan, they who say they are Jews and are not. So who are the real Jews? That's the question that has been posed to me many times over the past months. And there's really two answers to that question. And I'm going to be thorough today because I need to be thorough, because when you speak about this, it's going to upset a lot of people. So we're going to have to take our time in the scripture. So bear with me. Two answers to that question. One I already addressed in the rotting stick of false restoration and the synagogue of Satan teaching. And that is, who are the true Jews? Well, the Fehalim, which is a term for the so-called Palestinians, the migrant farmers that never left the land of Israel in 70 of the Common Era when the Romans came in. They still were attached to the land. They were called the Fehalim, or what we call today the so-called Palestinians, are in fact the descendants of the poor agricultural Jewish society that stayed in the land, yet they converted to Islam in the 6th and 7th centuries to avoid paying the Islamic jizya tax, because if they had done that, they would have lost their land, and they were attached to the land, so therefore they converted to Islam so that they could stay in the land, working the soil that their forefathers worked. This is recognized in 1918 by the historians David Ben-Gurion, who of course was the future Prime Minister of Israel back then, and Yitzhak Ben-Zvi, the future President of Israel. Both of them historians recognize this fact. Today, of course, it's buried in your history books. The irony of it all. More black Americans have been lost to the Ashkenazi slavers, their gangster rap, Beyonce's form of Luciferianism, than any other group. What an irony. More African Americans have been lost to Islam in the 20th century. What an irony. More than any other New Testament believing community. Yet Islam is the largest slavers of people of color in the world today. What are we doing? 11.5 to 14 million blacks in America arrived here because they were enslaved by Islam and sold to the Ashkenazi ship merchants that are producing the black culture today. Music, movies, to enslave you and to enslave me. And now we come to the politics, and I can't take it. We got what? How many more days do we have? Oh, too many. And this is this irony. And I feel like I am walking around and I'm like, am I the only one? Because it seems real simple to me. I didn't grow up in this country. How come I know this stuff? And you guys grew up here and you don't know this stuff? Or do you know this stuff and you just don't care? Because I didn't study American history. I mean, yeah, we had a spattering of it, but even I knew this. How come you don't know this? More black Americans have been lost to the Democratic Party than any other group in the 20th century. Progressive Democrats in the early 20th century are the ones that implemented sterilization of blacks. Democrats. Post-1970s, Democrats have opened the largest concentration of Planned Parenthood and abortion clinics located where? In the black communities. They're killing Negroes. Killing the regal class of the House of Judah. Republicans abolished slavery. Can we realize that? Democrats supported slavery. Republicans gave blacks the vote. Democrats tried to keep the vote from blacks. Republicans passed the 1964 Civil Rights Act. Who opposed it? Democrats. The first black Republican was elected to the U.S. Senate in 1871. The first black Democrat was elected to the U.S. Senate in 1999. It only took the Democrats 128 years. Oh my goodness, am I crazy? Because I'm seeing something here. The first 22 blacks elected to the U.S. House were all Republicans. All civil rights legislation from 1865 to 1965 was passed over the objections of Democrats. All civil rights legislation. All civil rights legislation. The Democrats have stood in the way of civil rights for over 100 years. So now you go, well, why are so many black Negro royal class of the House of Judah caught up in voting for those that would try to enslave you? Historically, will tell you the Democrats have kept you in slavery. Because they're still enslaving you. And they're still keeping you in slavery. They just rename it, remarket it, remanufacture it, but nothing is new under the sun. Democrats want to enslave you. All civil rights legislation from 1865 to 1965 was passed over the objections of Democrats. Every civil rights initiative for that 100-year period, from the Civil Rights Act of 1866 to the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments to the Civil Rights Act of 1875, was proposed and passed by Republicans. How do I know this stuff and you guys don't? 100 years of civil rights activism by the Republicans. 100 years of civil rights obstruction. The Democrats. I'm not telling you how to vote. Make your own decisions, people. Dr. King was a Christian and a Republican. Malcolm X was a Republican. The Ku Klux Klan, wake up! It was formed after the Civil War as a military force serving the interests of the Democratic Party, formed to fight against Lincoln's Republican Party that had freed black slaves. And those black slaves were trying to vote. They were trying to be voted into positions of judges, trying to be voted into positions of governmental influence, and more Democrats lynched blacks between 1870 and 1900 than any other group in the whole of the history of this country. Democrats were lynching blacks. Can we be real? This really bothers me, can you tell? Because we've got all this and I'm like, but you're Democrats. And I know what you're up to. And it is sickening to me. Because we have textual, historic data that proves what you're up to. So how did the regal class of the House of Judah get so caught up in slavery? Because when Lyndon Johnson came to power, blacks who traditionally voted 95% Republican suddenly switched over to Democrat. That is when it happened. Why? Because now the Democrats were promising to give them free stuff. And you know, it's kind of hard to turn down free stuff, isn't it? I'll have those niggers 100 years. I'll have those niggers voted. 100 years. Lyndon B. Johnson confiding in two governors why the passage of his civil rights and welfare legislation was important in 1963. Can you not see who's trying to enslave you? Come on, Dad. It's the difference between house slaves and field slaves. Yeah. Field slaves, I mean, man, they lived dreadful lives. Dreadful lives of hard outdoor labor, picking cotton, or even worse. They were always looking for the opportunity to escape, those field slaves. But the house slaves, on the other hand, they get to wear their master's clothes. Well, yeah, I mean, they were hand-me-downs, torn and tattered, but they would receive free meals. They would have the leftover scraps from their master's table. And when the field slaves came in and they would say, let's run, let's get out of here, the house slaves would say, well, run where? Where are we going to get anything better than this? Right? So it is with modern day black liberal Democrats. They're house slaves. House slaves. You vote what you want. But don't vote due to propaganda, color, and ignorance of your own history and what tribe you truly belong to. The reality is, blacks are being pimped like prostitutes by Democrats. Quanal X. You see, too often black believers have espoused a Christianity that ignores their blackness, instead of appreciating and speaking to it from history and the scriptures. And that's the problem. Jeremiah chapter 2 verse 14. Is Israel a servant? Is he a homeborn slave? Why was he plundered? Is Israel the servant of Yahweh, as one born in his house? Why then is he treated as with one with no master to protect him? Because if you live outside your master's house, if you live outside his covenant realm, you're going to be enslaved. And that's what's happened. John chapter 8 verse 35, and a slave does not abide in the house forever, but a son, he abides forever. We have to go to the door of Yahusha, because we've got to become a bondservant, which makes you a son, because that's the change of status that entitles us to abide forever. And this is it. It's the healing hands that would come and take away that leprosy, Because that's what we see, the leprosy of racism and the leprosy of slavery. But within leprosy, you have all the pigmentations of mankind. Because first, the leper's skin would turn yellow and red, and then black, and then white. And it is only Yahusha that can heal that kind of wound. And that's why I'm telling you this, because it is only Yahusha that can bring the whole house